The film A Bridge Too Far tells the story of a fateful mission. But for many of the actors in the film, the real tragedy begins after the cameras stop rolling. Addiction, inherited psychological trauma, and broken families reshaped their lives in horrifying ways. Join us as we explore the hidden consequences you may never have known about. Dirk Bogarde as Lieutenant General. Lieutenant General Frederick Boy Browning, the strategist whose decisions resonate throughout the film, A Bridge Too Far, is played by Dirk Bogarde. At age 56, he brought to the film a cold intellect and moral tension that shaped its most unsettling perspective. His performance offered no comfort, forcing the audience to confront its own accountability. Born on March 28, 1921, in London, Bogarde's childhood unfolded in the shadow of instability and war. The evacuations, the bombings, and the disruptions to his education replaced any sense of security. These upheavals forged him from an early age, preparing him for a future shaped by resilience rather than ease. His innocence ended long before adulthood began. His love life unfolded in silence. Bogarde never married, living for over 4 decades with his partner Anthony Forwood in a society that demanded discretion. The need to conceal his love created lasting psychological pressure, forcing him to create a distance between his public image and his private life. The loss came when Forwood died a slow death from illness, leaving Bogarde emotionally devastated and isolated. His body eventually failed, following his mind. Years of heavy smoking weakened his heart, and in 1996, a severe stroke left him partially paralyzed and with difficulty speaking. Writing became his last refuge as his mobility declined. Dirk Bogarde died on May 8, 1999, at the age of 78, of a heart attack at his London home. His ashes were scattered at Le Pigeonnier in Grasse, France, a place associated with his longest-serving companion. With an estimated net worth of $10 million, his true wealth lay in his courage and strength to survive war, oppression, and physical decline without losing his dignity. Sean Connery as Major General Urquhart. Major General Roy Urquhart, the besieged British Army commander in the Battle of the Bridge Too Far, is portrayed by Sean Connery. At 47, he embodies the emotional depth of the film, portraying a leader isolated from command, witnessing plans crumble while human lives are lost. This character becomes the moral cornerstone of the story. Born on August 25, 1930, in Fountainbridge, Edinburgh, Connery grew up in abject poverty. His father drove a truck, his mother worked as a house cleaner, and the family crowded into slums where warmth and privacy were scarce. He dropped out of school at age 13 to work, polishing coffins and delivering milk at dawn, learning discipline through exhaustion. Those early years forged him into a tough and unyielding person. As an adult, his personal life wasn't much easier either. Connery's marriage to actress Diane Salento broke down due to infidelity, jealousy, and public allegations of domestic violence, leaving him and his son Jason deeply wounded. His later marriage to Micheline Roquebrune brought stability, but the wounds of the past lingered. For Connery, love was never simple or unaffected by power and pressure. His health deteriorated after his success. Discharged from the Royal Navy as a teenager due to chronic stomach ulcers, Connery carried the illness throughout his life, later surviving throat cancer in 2003. In his later years, dementia gradually erased his memories and independence, a cruel reversal for a man who always sought control. Silence replaced authority, and retreat replaced command. Sean Connery died in his sleep on October 31, 2020, at the age of 90, at his home in the Bahamas. The cause of death was pneumonia and respiratory failure, recorded in the early morning hours of that day. He was cremated, and his ashes were later scattered in Scotland, closing a chapter in a life of hardship that began in the slums. With an estimated net worth of $350 million, his legacy lies not in his wealth, but in the resilience forged through suffering. Laurence Olivier as Dr. Sponder, Dr. Sponder, an exhausted Dutch doctor clinging to his humanity in an extremely difficult situation, is portrayed by Laurence Olivier. At age 70, he delivered one of the quietest yet most devastating performances in film, transforming his brief screen time into profound moral depth. His character lingered long after he left the screen. Born on May 22, 1907, in Dorking, England, Olivier's childhood was marked by loss and fear. His mother died when he was only 12 years old, leaving an emotional void that could never be filled. Raised by a strict pastor father, he grew up in a harsh, disciplined environment instead of a relaxed one. At school, he was bullied, isolated, and soon realized that weakness would lead to suffering. This yearning for acceptance followed him into adulthood and marriage. Olivier married 3 times, each marriage reflecting a different chapter in his emotional life. His marriage to Vivian Lee was the most brilliant and ultimately the most devastating, shattered by her severe mental illness and the unbearable pressure of 2 vastly different egos clashing. That breakup left scars on both of them, their private pain amplified by public attention. Stability only came later for Joan Plowright, although the price paid for those earlier years never completely disappeared. As he aged, his body began to weaken. Olivier battled dermatomyositis, a degenerative muscle disease that gradually weakened his health, along with prostate cancer in his later years. Whenever he appeared, the fragility in his voice carried an authenticity that no technique could fake. Laurence Olivier died on July 11, 1989, at the age of 82, at his home in Steyning, West Sussex, from kidney failure after a long illness. He was cremated, and his ashes are placed in the Poets' Corner at Westminster Abbey. With an estimated net worth of around $20 million, his true legacy is not his wealth, but his ability to transform personal grief into enduring art. Anthony Hopkins as Lieutenant Colonel. Lieutenant Colonel John Frost, the determined officer who held firm to the bridge in the film A Bridge Too Far, is played by Anthony Hopkins. At age 40, he displayed calm leadership as isolation grew. His character, Frost, was defined by restraint, clarity, and acceptance of seemingly insurmountable difficulties. This role provided a foundation for the film's emotional tension without resorting to flashy scenes. Born on December 31, 1937, in Port Talbot, Wales, Hopkins grew up in painful solitude. He struggled academically, was frequently bullied, and developed a deep-seated inferiority complex that haunted him into adulthood. Music, painting, and his imagination became his refuges when human relationships ceased to exist. That loneliness turned into low self-esteem long before success came. Marriage reflected internal conflict. Hopkins married Petronella Barker, then Jennifer Linton, both marriages plagued by emotional distance and addiction before ending in divorce. Stability came later with Stella Arroyave, who arrived at the same time as a quieter and more stable period of his life. Hopkins had publicly acknowledged his failures as a husband and father, accepting the price of his obsession and complacency. Alcohol had nearly destroyed him. By the time he turned 30, Hopkins was heavily addicted to alcohol, drinking daily and spiraling into depression. In 1975, just 2 years before he was about to reach his breaking point, he completely quit drinking after seeking help, a decision he later described as life-saving. This sobriety became the foundation for his outstanding performances, such as in The Silence of the Lambs, which earned him an Oscar, and in The Remains of the Day, where he displayed powerful control. By 2026, Anthony Hopkins will be 89 years old. He alternates between the United States and the United Kingdom, remaining actively creative through acting, painting, and writing, and is scheduled to publish his memoir, We Did Okay, Kid, in 2025. With an estimated net worth of $160 million, his legacy is not only one of exceptional talent, but also of resilience in overcoming loneliness, addiction, and the passage of time. James Caan as Sergeant Dohoon, a seasoned American paratrooper in A Bridge Too Far, is portrayed by James Caan. At 37, he brings immense strength and tension to the film. Embodying a soldier who acts more on instinct than strategy, his presence adds to the sweat, fear, and instability of the battlefield. This role reflects a man constantly on the verge of exploding. Born on March 26, 1940, in New York City, Caan grew up in a Jewish immigrant family shaped by a survivalist spirit. His father was a hard-working butcher, while the streets of Queens taught Caan toughness from an early age. Violence was commonplace, and fighting became second nature, a way to prove existence rather than power. Family provided discipline, but lacked emotional support. This instability followed him into adulthood and marriage. Caan married 4 times, each marriage ending in heartbreak due to addiction, infidelity, and emotional detachment. His cocaine abuse worsened during the 1970s and 1980s, eroding trust and stability, even as he had several children. Love never lasted long enough to heal the wounds inflicted. Mental health problems exacerbated his decline. Caan struggled with severe depression and drug addiction, to the point where his career stalled and his body began to deteriorate. Although he delivered unforgettable performances in The Godfather, earning him an Oscar nomination, and later in Misery, success could not extinguish the turmoil within him. These periods of withdrawal from Hollywood reflected his mental breakdown. James Caan died on July 6, 2022, at the age of 82, at the Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles. The cause of death was a myocardial infarction caused by coronary artery disease, combined with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, and congestive heart failure. He was buried at Eden Memorial Park Cemetery. With an estimated net worth of $20 million, his life ended as he had lived it, tumultuous, full of trauma, and unforgettable. Wolfgang Price as Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt. In the film The Bridge is Too Far, Wolfgang Price plays the aging strategist at the head of Germany's crumbling command. At 67, he exudes weariness rather than authority, giving the film an image of inevitability and decay. His Rundstedt no longer shouts orders, but accepts defeat, a role that portrays loss as a foregone conclusion. Born on February 27, 1910, in Nuremberg, Germany, Price grew up in an intellectual family, the son of a teacher. He immersed himself in philosophy, German literature, and drama, drawn to ideas rather than comfort. His adolescence unfolded against a backdrop of extreme and unstable politics, shaping a disciplined yet introverted personality. Reason precedes emotion, distance precedes warmth. Marriage offers stability rather than escape. Price married 3 times, his last marriage to Ruth Schulmeister lasting from 1955 until her death in 2002. His family life remained largely private, stable but quiet, reflecting his reserved personality. Stability prevailed, but intimacy was carefully guarded. There are no records of him suffering from any prolonged illness. Instead, his health remained good into old age. His career filled the void where vulnerability could have been revealed, particularly through his portrayals of German officers in films like The Longest Day. Acting became a channel for expressing darkness rather than an admission of it. Wolfgang Price died on November 27, 2002, at the age of 92 in Buhl, Baden-Württemberg, following complications from a fall. He was buried quietly, without fanfare. With an estimated fortune of $5 million, his legacy remains a source of much contemplation. His entire life demonstrated ruthless power, shaped by history, yet he was never truly free from it. Edward Fox as Lieutenant General Horrocks. Lieutenant General Brian Horrocks, the calm British commander in the film A Bridge Too Far, played by Edward Fox. At age 40, he brought to the role a calm authority and subtle intelligence, demonstrating command through precision rather than brute force. His character Horrocks balanced warmth and discipline with quiet confidence. Born on April 13, 1937, in Chelsea, London, Fox grew up in a family with a long theatrical tradition. His family was steeped in the performing arts spirit, and comparisons were inevitable from a young age. Instead of providing comfort, family prestige created pressure to meet standards. Identity had to be built, not inherited. Their relationships unfolded cautiously. Fox's first marriage to Tracy Reed ended prematurely, leaving an emotional distance. Years later, he found stability with Joanna David, whom he married in 2004 after a long courtship. Family life ultimately became a solid foundation, shared with his children who also entered the world of acting. Thanks to his happy marriage, Fox's story focuses on perseverance through work. His career has produced sharp performances in The Day of the Jackal and Gandhi, along with theatrical works that have kept his talent going beyond film. Consistency, not excess, has shaped the rhythm of his career. By 2026, Edward Fox will be 89 years old. He lives a peaceful life between London and Dorset, largely retired from acting but remains a respected figure in British theatrical history. With an estimated net worth of $10 million, his legacy is based on precision, restraint, and a lifetime of dedication to commanding without fanfare. Gene Hackman as Major General Sosabowski, Major General Stanislaw Sosabowski, the challenging Polish commander in the film A Bridge Too Far, is portrayed by Gene Hackman. At age 47, he brought moral conflict to the film, embodying a soldier who sees impending disaster but is ignored. His character, Sosabowski, conveyed anger, pride, and a tragic vision to the story. Born on January 30, 1930, in San Bernardino, California, Hackman's childhood was marked by abandonment and instability. Gene's father abandoned the family when he was young, leaving him with a persistent sense of abandonment that hardened him from an early age. Constantly moving, never settling down, he learned to rely solely on himself. At 16, he lied about his age to join the United States Marine Corps, choosing discipline over chaos and sacrificing his youth for survival. Marriage did not save him from stress. Hackman married Faye Maltese in 1956, and the marriage lasted nearly 30 years, filled with pressure from long absences, rising fame, and emotional distance, before ending in divorce in 1986. His subsequent marriage to Betsy Arakawa brought peace and privacy, but also led to his near-complete withdrawal from public life. Ultimately, the body forced the mind to comply. Hackman lived for decades with heart disease, underwent angioplasty in 1990, and subsequently suffered a gradual decline in cognitive function. In his final years, advanced Alzheimer's disease eroded his memory and judgment, leaving him dependent and isolated. Once a powerful figure who shaped films like The French Connection and Unforgiven, Gene Hackman passed away quietly. He died around February 18, 2025, at the age of 95, at his home in Santa Fe. The cause of death was severe heart disease, complicated by end-stage Alzheimer's and kidney failure, occurring just days after his wife passed away. He left behind an estimated $80 million fortune, a wealth earned through discipline and unwavering determination. But the final chapter of his life was marked not by accolades, but by a quiet disappearance. Michael Caine trong vai Trung tá J. O. E. Vandeleur, Lieutenant Colonel J. O. E. Vandeleur, the calm cavalry officer in the film A Bridge Too Far, is played by Michael Caine. At 44, he displayed composure and authority amidst the chaos, giving the film a professional feel forged from experience rather than ostentation. His character propelled the story forward with quiet capability. Born on March 14, 1933, in South London, Caine grew up in extreme poverty during wartime Britain. Bombings, displacement, and cramped housing shaped his early years. While hunger and fear were ever present, growing up in the slums, he learned resilience before he gained self-confidence. The war left him with memories that would later reappear in his military uniform. Caine's personal life also underwent its own transformations. His first marriage to Patricia Haynes ended quickly, fraught with immaturity and financial difficulties. His second marriage to Shakira Boksh, which began in 1973, became a solid foundation in his life, providing stability and an emotional base that lasted for decades. The contrast between the two relationships reflects a man who has learned profound but slow lessons from loss. The physical decline came late but was undeniable. After participating in the Korean War, Caine carried the psychological burden of war throughout his life. Later, spinal problems, falls, and declining mobility forced him to gradually retire. Upon officially retiring, his career was solidified by resounding successes, such as his role in The Italian Job and 2 Academy Awards. As of 2026, Michael Caine will be 93 years old. He lives a quiet life, having retired from acting, spending his time between London and his private residences, reflecting on his 8-decade career. With an estimated net worth of $80 million, he is a survivor of war, poverty, and time, one of the last remaining bridges between classic cinema and the modern age. Ryan O'Neal as Brigadier General Gavin, Brigadier General James Gavin, the paratrooper commander torn between courage and consequences in A Bridge Too Far, is portrayed by Ryan O'Neal. At 36, he brings youthful enthusiasm to a seasoned military figure, standing firm amidst chaos with the determination to mask his inner conflict. This role marked a stark contrast to the romantic image audiences expected of him. Born on April 20, 1941, in Los Angeles, O'Neal grew up amidst constant movement and tension. His family moved frequently, and instability became commonplace. Violence and intimidation shaped his adolescence, driving him to boxing as a form of self-defense rather than a sport. His childhood offered no security, only preparation for confrontation. His adult relationships mirrored this turmoil. O'Neal's marriages to Joanna Moore and Lee Taylor Young both ended in divorce, leaving behind broken families. His long and tumultuous relationship with Farrah Fawcett fluctuated between devotion and destruction, shaped by infidelity, jealousy, and emotional turmoil. These traumas affected his relationships with his children, some of whom later spoke publicly about abuse, addiction, and estrangement. Physical ailments eventually struck. O'Neal was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia, followed years later by prostate cancer, illnesses that drained his strength while his addiction continued to erode his stability. Even as his career soared with Love Story, earning him an Oscar nomination, and Paper Moon, his final years were consumed by hospital stays, court cases, and loss. Ryan O'Neal died on December 8, 2023, at the age of 82, at St. John's Medical Center in Santa Monica from congestive heart failure with cardiomyopathy as a contributing factor. He was buried next to Farrah Fawcett at Pierce Brothers Cemetery in Westwood Village Memorial Park. With an estimated net worth of $30 million, his story ends not as a Hollywood fairy tale, but as a cautionary portrait of the inescapable pain of fame.